Hello and welcome to Autistic FM. My name is Haje. I use he/him pronouns and I'm the referee that occasionally falls asleep on the job. You can subscribe to Autistic FM wherever you get your podcasts, and it would be really awesome if you did. That's how we grow and thrive. Over on our website at autistic.fm, you can find episode transcripts and additional information. We also have discussion threads for each individual episode, a neurospicy discussion forum, and much, much more. And all of that is free. If you become a supporter for as little as $5 a month, you can get a sneak preview of the topics we have coming up, and even submit questions for our guests. You can also add topics to our future topics wish list, and you get access to a supporters-only discussion group. We have a bunch of additional supporter treats coming up, so stay tuned. In this episode of the podcast, I'm joined by Mikey, an AI engineer and the creator of the NeuroTranslator app. Mikey shares his journey of discovering his own autism following his daughter's diagnosis, and how this revelation led to the creation of an innovative AI tool designed to improve communication between neurodivergent and neurotypical individuals. Mikey's story is filled with moments of unmasking, skill regression, and navigating misunderstandings in both personal and professional settings. Our conversation explores the challenges of navigating life with a new understanding of oneself, including the emotional turmoil of unmasking and the impact on relationships. We discuss the development of the NeuroTranslator app and its role in bridging communication gaps, offering a practical solution for many grappling with similar experiences. A quick trigger warning for this episode: we touch on topics such as the challenges of neurodivergence, relationship misunderstandings, and emotional distress. There's nothing particularly graphic in this episode, but please do take care of yourself and listen accordingly. Right, well, I think that's all I had. Let's press play on this tape. Hello and welcome back to Autistic FM. I am joined by a wonderful guest who's dialing in from very far away. Dear guest, what is your name and what pronouns do you use?
Hey, so my name is Michael Daniel and my pronouns are he, him.
Awesome. And where in the world are you?
I am from Australia, about 2 hours north of Sydney.
Awesome. I am psyched to have you as a guest. I am curious, how did you discover what your relationship is to neurodivergence?
Yeah, so I always grew up thinking a little bit differently. I struggled a lot during school with social hierarchies, friend groups. I understood why those things were happening, but I didn't really feel into them, if that makes sense. So I had a lot of issues there, but I didn't think too much into it. I sort of was able to cruise my way through, going unnoticed, flying under the radar. I was known as like the easygoing guy. Finished school, university, got a bachelor's degree in went on to have an almost 10-year career in data analysis and then moved on to become an AI engineer. But about a year and a half ago, my eldest daughter was actually diagnosed as autistic. And that really kickstarted me on this whole journey, because I decided that I was going to learn as much as I possibly could about neurodivergence, because I wanted to support her and parent her as best as I could. So I started reading every book that I could find. And I remember the first book that I ever read, I was in the library with her and I picked up Divergent Mind, and I came home that night and I started reading it while everyone else had gone to bed. And I was just sitting there in the dark with the lamp on, and I started reading it and I just felt goosebumps shoot like all over my body, because I realized in that moment, I'm not reading just about my daughter. I'm also reading about myself and my life. This describes everything I've experienced perfectly. So it was really this like penny dropping moment where I was like, holy shit, I'm autistic. So then that led me to the whole unmasking journey, where I started to read everything I could on the unmasking process. I read Unmasking Autism by Devon Price,
It's a
a
great
bunch
read.
of other books, a bunch of blog articles. Yeah, it is a great read. And I thought naively, okay, so I'm going to go through this unmasking process. I'll discover some quirky things about myself that I pushed down in childhood. And I'm an adult now, so stuff what other people think, I'll just let those things shine through, and it'll be fun. It'll be discovering parts of me that I had suppressed for so long. And it was not like that. So,
cut to...
yeah, honestly, for me personally, it was brutal, almost subconsciously. Skill regression, burnout, huge amount of misunderstandings and miscommunications that cropped up, because it was almost like my brain all of a sudden had been given a permission to stop hyper analyzing everything. So I'd gone my entire life I didn't realize, but I'd gone my entire life. Whenever I was in conversation with somebody, I was analyzing what they were saying and I would come up with what I thought they wanted to hear. And often at the cost of suppressing my actual thoughts, but I didn't know that I was
Yep.
doing any of this. It had been completely built into who I was. And that's why I was given the whole label of easygoing, because I was easygoing. I went with whatever social group that I was a part of. I would just go along. I would transform into whatever they needed me to be. I lost that ability when I started unmasking, and misunderstandings and miscommunications ramped up dramatically. So my wife in particular became really painful because she's neurotypical. And it just almost seemed like we were on different wavelengths. We were communicating completely differently all of a sudden. And it was like really hard for her as well because she's gone almost 10 years knowing this person and loving this person. And then all of a sudden there's some big shift happen. So she doesn't know how, like, what's going on? Who is this new guy that I'm married to? So that all just kept feeding into all those painful misunderstandings where I would come out and say something that I thought was completely neutral or even positive at times. And she would then later, 3 days later, come to me and say, just so you know, when you said this the other day, that like really cut me deep. And I was blindsided over and over.
That
Like,
happens to
oh,
me all the time.
yeah, like
It is absolutely wild.
it is, especially when you have like complete positive intent. I just couldn't make sense of what the hell is going on. And going from high masking and never having really had these problems to, I mean, I had different problems, but to going to this, I was like, I had no idea how to handle this. So unmasking, deep in burnout, misunderstandings coming out the wazoo. And that is where this journey of NeuroTranslator was born.
Before we dive into that, I mean, that's going to be the thrust of this podcast, and I look forward to talking about that in great detail. You just mentioned a couple of things that absolutely made the back of my head stand on end because your journey is incredibly familiar to me. I could have said almost the same thing, and it's wild. There was one thing that I particularly wanted to double click on for a moment. You mentioned skill regression, and that has come up in a few of these podcast episodes in the past. And I've never actually paused to say, hey, what does that mean to you? So I'd love to do that and go, hey, what does that mean to you? And what kind of skills were you regressing and how did that show up? And could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the way it showed up and presented in my life is that things that I could do before, even if I struggled through them, became really difficult. And I mean things that I normally found easy, like doing the groceries or cooking a meal. Those things became extremely difficult where my executive function just had such limited capacity that as soon as if I cooked a meal, for example, that had a few complex steps, I'd be exhausted. It was so weird. I'd never experienced that before. I didn't understand. How can all of a sudden I can't do these things? It didn't make any sense. And I started to dig in a bit deeper and try and learn what's going on. I couldn't find any definitive answers. I found some theories. So some people were saying that it's like the mask that you've built up over your lifetime. The skills are in your brain, the networks are all almost attached to that mask. So when you lose that mask, I think it's called synaptic pruning, and it's like those skills fall away as well. They're still in there, but you can't efficiently get to them like you used to.
Like attached to the wrong thing kind of thing.
Yeah. So it honestly was like for a period, I had to relearn these things as a new person. And I tell people like family and friends about this experience. And I don't think anyone that hasn't been through it can really understand because it's mind blowing even to me that I went through it. But yeah, that was my experience. It's just simple everyday things that were simple for me became extremely difficult.
That is absolutely fascinating. Before we move on, do you have any tips to somebody who's finding them in the middle of that, oh God, everything is suddenly very hard? How did you get out to the other side? Did you learn any tips or tricks along the way that might help other people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the number one thing that helped me, and it took me quite some time to get to a point where it was really useful, but you have to be self-compassionate. When I particularly was in that burnt out skill regression phase, I was beating myself up a lot at the start, like just saying horrible things to myself in my own head, ruminating over how, quote unquote useless I'd become and like the worst possible things that you can think of. And then one day I thought to myself, would I ever speak to my daughter the way that I'm speaking to myself right now? And the answer
Yeah.
was hell no. Like I would never, ever talk to my daughter like this. So then why am I talking to myself like this? And then I underwent a process of whenever that voice cropped up, it was like, hold on, stop. And then I would turn it into a compassionate message about, you'll get through this and it's okay. Like you're dealing with a lot. You've got young kids, that like all the reasons why it's happening. And that really helped get me through. Another big thing that really helped me, and I'm extremely fortunate to have this, but my family, particularly my wife and friends, were extremely supportive. Like my wife is 1 in a billion. She supported me throughout the entire thing. She learned as much as she read all of the books as well. She learned as much as she possibly could about unmasking and skill regression and everything that was going on. Whenever I brought her things to show her, she didn't poo them. She was right on board trying to make as much sense of the situation as I was. And I think that really sped things up and allowed me to feel safe enough to move through it. Whereas I think if you're not in a safe environment where you're not feeling supported, and if you're like butting heads with people that are trying to stop your unmasking process, I think that it honestly could drag out for years and years and years. And I get comments on my videos constantly of people saying, I've been doing this for 3 years and I'm not getting anywhere. And it's just like heartbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's super helpful. And so you leaned on your technical prowess and started doing something with neurodivergence. Say a little bit about what you're working on.
Yeah, so when we were like deep in having all these misunderstandings, I couldn't use my own brain to gather my thoughts. Someone would say something and it was like my brain just sent out all of these thoughts and they'd be swirling, and it was up to me to do my best to choose. And oftentimes that answer that I chose was actually, especially if it was a question that related to my feelings, because I have alexithymia as well. So if someone asked me about the way I was feeling, these thoughts would just start swirling and I'd pick one. And then 3 days later, when I actually realized how I do feel, I'd think, why did I say that? That makes zero sense to me. It almost felt like I had split personalities and they were just jumping all over the place.
And so just for listeners who are not
Yeah.
super familiar with that, what you're describing is called delayed processing, and it's super, super common, right? And so, yeah, I just wanted to name the thing you just talked about. And then you developed a
Yeah.
thing. What was the thing?
Yeah. So one of my special interests is artificial intelligence. So I was rolling that out at the company that I was working at, and I decided one day I'm just going to build my own personal assistant to help see if I can use it to lay out my thoughts in like a structured process that I can sort of gather a better understanding around. And I was absolutely blown away by its ability to interpret what I call word vomit or brain vomit and turn it into something that made complete sense to me and what I was actually experiencing. So I used this personal assistant for about a month. And one day when my things started to get a lot better, and one day my wife said, oh, like things have been a lot lighter around here lately. And I showed her what I'd been using. And I think at first she was a little bit taken back, didn't quite understand what was happening, what the AI was doing, but I let it go. We moved on. And then about a week later, we had a misunderstanding where she said something that actually like really hurt my feelings. And she's very good at picking up on the way that I feel before I do. So she'll notice subtle cues like my jaw tightening or things like that before I even have any awareness of it. So she recognized that I was upset. She came to me and she had the assistant up on her phone and she said, just so you know, this is what I meant and I think it's come across this way to you. And I was like, oh, thank you for showing me that. That makes complete sense. That is the way I took it. But now that I can see the way you meant it, I can let that go.
So without going deep into your marital explosions, can you bring that to life a little bit? What was the type of misunderstanding that was happening?
Yeah, so that particular misunderstanding, I can remember it because we're having one of those conversations where we were trying to explain something to each other and we just kept missing, like it wasn't making sense. I think she said to me, sometimes in these moments, I wish that my husband had a neurotypical brain. And obviously that hurt my feelings a lot because I can't change my brain. It's who I am. I identify as autistic, and that really cut me deep. When she brought me the translation, it was her way of just trying to communicate her frustrations and feelings in that moment. And she didn't actually want me to have a different brain or change who I am. It would be easier in those moments if she was having those misunderstandings with someone of the same neurotype. So things like that is where the AI assistant really helped get us through those moments really quickly. Normally, something like that I could ruminate on for hours, days, weeks, months if it was a really complex issue. But it was like as soon as I saw both worldviews laid out next to each other with an opportunity to bridge that gap, it was like all of a sudden we could turn these misunderstandings into opportunities for connection. And it actually strengthened our relationship, which was just insane to me, given where
That's
I
amazing.
was a moment before.
Yeah, totally. And I think what I'm observing in this particular story is there's two things, right? There's the kind of the very, very natural and often occurring black and white thinking that happens in autistic folks. You want me to be different? Oh God, I'm a terrible person. Or at least that's how it goes for me. Why do I even?
Me too.
And I spiral like crazy. But then that is interlaced with rejection sensitive dysphoria. So the perceived rejection combined with black and white thinking, just sometimes like people can say the simplest things and I am destroyed. And I think, so what I'm hearing then is that the app looks at that and presents to you that, hey, maybe this isn't maybe the whole truth that's happening here. Is that what's happening?
That's exactly it. So I think, especially with the black and white thinking that you mentioned, I can get stuck in my lens of the world and what's going on. And it's not until you have this third party, I guess this is why going to therapy and couples therapy and things like that, especially if they're trained in neurodivergence, it offered up this third party objective viewpoint that was like, maybe you aren't seeing it for exactly what it is. Maybe there's pieces missing in your lens, and there almost always is, you know? So that's why it was so helpful, just having this third party objective piece of information to go, this is my view, this is her view. I see what's gone wrong here. Let's piece all of that together into one view, if that makes sense.
And so what does the AI actually do? Does it just take your statement and her statement and kind of looks at it and finds overlaps and differences, or does it try to rephrase it? Or could you talk a little bit more about what the interaction is from a user's point of view?
Yeah, so the initial version that I had was that I was just using personally. Basically, what you would do is I would type in the exact scenario, how I was feeling, what was said, and given it context that I'm autistic and my wife's neurotypical, it would spit out, this is how you've taken it, this is how it could have been presented in her mind, and this is how you bridge that gap. And it gave sort of advice on how to broach the conversation with her moving forward so that we could connect again rather than just be stuck in our own views on it. And so that was the initial version. And then something happened, and this is where it all started. I organized a meeting with my boss, and the meeting was called Work in the Pipeline. So I've gone into this meeting thinking, like the subject line was up on the screen, like we're going to talk about the work that's coming up. And he joins the meeting and he's on Zoom and he looks a little bit awkward, but I didn't really pick up on any of that. And he goes straight into script of, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to let you go. We're a startup and we can't afford to pay a full-time data analyst / AI engineer at the moment. So I'm really sorry, but yeah. And because my previous experiences with him, we'd made jokes about, different various things. And I saw the awkward look on his face and he was awkwardly smiling, but not in a happy way, as I found out, but in this is really painful to deliver this message. I burst out laughing because I thought it was a big joke.
You thought he was having you on?
Yeah, I thought he was just having me on. So I'm laughing. He's probably like,
he's
what the fuck's going on? He's broken, like something's happened. But then HR pops up on the screen and she looks visibly upset, like obviously upset. And then I was like, oh, this isn't a joke, is it? And he said, no, I'm really sorry, I'm terrible at these conversations. And he wasn't. It was just my misinterpretation of it. But she then read me through all the technicalities of the contract and how it would all pan out. And I couldn't even hear her. I just could not even hear her because I was just thinking the whole time, I just got fired and I laughed. What happened there? So anyway, that finishes. I walk out, I tell my wife. She was obviously super supportive because she's just amazing like that. And I thought to myself, this misunderstanding thing and miscommunication thing is happening so often for me. It's got to be happening for other people. So I decided I'm going to release this AI tool, and if it helps two people, I've helped two people. That's amazing to me. So I built the most disgusting looking website you've ever seen. I put it up online and I post on Reddit, went to bed and woke up in the morning and it had blown up completely. Like the positive feedback was just overwhelming. People were messaging me saying, "Oh my God, I now understand my husband slash wife." One person even emailed me saying, "My relationship didn't work out, but I've entered in all of the situations that happened and I now understand what's going on and I have complete closure." And that was just like mind blowing to me. Like even with the relationship ended, she got something out of it. So it blew up, and then someone made a TikTok video about it, and that blew up as well and got, it got, I think in the first 24 hours, over 600,000 views, and tens of thousands of people were just hitting the website and just running, I assume, everything they could possibly run through it. And that was amazing. I came out and I was like, babe, like it went viral. Like people absolutely love it. And she was like, what? So that was all well and good, but then I logged into my email and I just saw notification after notification of your billing
Huh?
account has increased. And I was like, oh God, I've gone from employed, unemployed, released this tool, and now it's burning a hole in my pocket. And it was
Right.
costing me hundreds of dollars per day. And I was like, I can't afford to keep this running. So I really tossed up between, do I have to take this thing offline and disappoint everyone? Or do I have to add some sort of payment so that I can, one, slow down the amount that people use it, but two, just to help me cover the software stack that's required to actually run this thing? Because I think a lot of people don't realize, but throwing this stuff up online isn't
Oh,
a free thing a lot of the time. It costs us a lot that goes into the back end of keeping it running. So I decided to add a paywall, but I had two separate options. So I had the standard price, which was a little bit extra, but it helped just pay me as a solo developer that's just lost their job. And then there was the financial hardship price, which was less, but covered the cost of the software underlying it. It was like very clear. Both plans offer the same features, exactly the same. It's up to you and your situation to choose what suits your situation best. And I was absolutely blown away by the amount of people that chose full price. And I still am to this day, because I guess the autistic community are honest a lot of the time. And yeah, a lot of people chose the full price, which is just incredible, because I would have honestly gone into it thinking everyone's just going to choose the cheaper one, because people, especially a disadvantaged community like the autistic community who have huge unemployment rates. Yeah, it was just incredible to see. But yeah, so that happened. I released that. But one piece of feedback that I kept getting was, this needs to be a mobile app because I need to be able to bring it out at work or when I'm out and about. So I spent the next 4 months turning it into what is now known as NeuroTranslator. And it is a mobile app that I built a bunch of features into it so that you can set up your own profile. You can put in things like your name, age, your neurotype. So whether you're autistic, ADHD is included, or ADHD or neurotypical. We are looking at adding some more, but at the moment it's those ones. And you can also enter in a bit of information about yourself. So you can put in things like your triggers, your sensory sensitivities, things you like, dislike, just to give it that additional bit of information to really personalize it to your experience. Yeah. It also then allows you to enter in connections in your life. So these can be people like your partner, your children, students, teachers, anybody basically that you want to try and understand better and you are having trouble understanding, possibly due to having different neurotypes or even similar neurotypes, but different expressions of that neurotype, right? So I spent 4 months developing that, and then I released that online. And as a way of promoting that, I decided, well, someone made a TikTok video about my original version that was just the website. So I'll create my own TikTok and I'll start making videos and I'll just see what happens. Posted a couple of videos, got up 600 views or something. And then I posted a video, and it was my third video. And today it is by far the most viral video I have. It's just like me being silly, basically doing over exaggerations of different neurotypes in different situations. And that video just hit 5 million views, I believe. So spent a lot more time on TikTok learning, okay, how does this thing work? And I had a few more videos come out and a few more viral ones. And I think in the space of 6 weeks, I got up to 15,000 followers, which was just insane. And that's where I came across your content. So I was just going through the For You page, came across your podcast, and I really liked the clips and yeah, just decided to reach out. So here we are.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love that people are building tools and techniques and content and whatnot. I feel like the interesting thing about making anything for a neurodivergent audience is that they are neurodivergent, right? I've spoken to a bunch of autistic folks who are like, I will never ever listen to a podcast. I hate people talking into my ears. I was like, yeah, I get it. I 100% get it. And there's other people like, I would never read because my flavor of neurodivergence means I'm also dyslexic and it's just not a pleasurable activity. Or people are like, I don't like having real life conversations. I much prefer if it's like text where I can sit and think and all that kind of thing. And so by having all the different kind of neuro spicinesses covered, like you with an app, me with a podcast, there's lots of good books and blog posts and whatnot out there. I think that's a really beautiful thing to be able to do. I'm really excited for you. Can you say something about how it's going? Like how many users do you have? Are you happy with it? What's next?
Yeah, so it came out about 2 months ago. The app came out. We've just hit over 2,000 downloads and it's going really well. I just appeared on another podcast and I've got a few more coming up next month. I also had Reuters and the Washington Post reach out and do interviews with me. So waiting for those articles to come out. There's a lot happening. I'm communicating with people a lot more than I ever anticipated. My wheelhouse with building things is the actual creative process of building the app. And I didn't anticipate just how much networking was going to be required to get it up and running. But it's been a skill building experience and I'm getting better and better at it. And 6 months ago, I would have never even imagined coming on a podcast like that. That would scare the shit out of me, you know? But here I am just, day after day trying to organize more podcasts.
Is it something you enjoy doing, or are you like stretching into something where you're like, oh, I don't love this?
No, so I absolutely love it while I'm doing it. The lead up, I can get a little bit nervous, but again, I think it's one of those things where the more I do it, the less I think about it and I just come into it. And I've told the story 4,000 times now, so it's becoming more second nature, but it was tough at first, but yeah, getting a lot better at it.
Yeah. Is it still a solo thing or do you have a small team now?
So it's still a solo thing. I'm very lucky and very grateful that I get to use AI as part of my team. I think that has helped me speed things up dramatically. The ability to write copy, to bounce ideas off an AI. I think more and more people are going to tap into that resource as time goes by. But being an AI engineer, I sort of had already worked out how to prompt engineer to get really good results. So I could give it as much context as I want, and I know I'm going to get good feedback. Whereas I think a lot of people go into using tools, for example, ChatGPT, they type in a question or they type in something really brief and vague and get a really brief or vague response back, and they go, this is crap. Why is everyone raving about this? This is a bubble, well, I'm not touching this again. And it's the quality of your input that provides the quality of the output.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here nodding. I've built a whole bunch of AI tools as well, and it's fascinating, like the amount of everything you just said, 100%. What is next? What are you hoping to grow this into or build this into?
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm just trying to build the user base up as large as I possibly can, help as many people as I can. I'm currently in contact with a bunch of therapists and couples therapists that are trying to better understand how to support their neurodivergent clients and just testing as many different avenues as I possibly can. I've got teachers that are using it in schools to help understand their students more. And it's really designed to be a one app fits all solution at the moment. So it's just getting in contact with as many of these groups as possible, because at the end of the day, I just want to have it support as many people as it possibly can. That's the guiding light for me. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's doing well. I'm happy with the growth of it. And if so be it comes to a point where I need more help, and I'll look at turning it into a business with employees and staff and whatnot. But at the moment, it's just me trying to help as many people as possible.
I love that. The great thing about being a solopreneur, just tinkering away in your office, is you get to make all the mistakes, but you get to have all the benefits too, right? Like any money that comes in that doesn't go to servers is yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have built a bunch of venture-backed startups. I've built a bunch of other startups over the years. And yeah, I think that's that space you're in now when anything is possible. Of course it's scary and of course it's hard. Like startups really suck. They really do. But
Yeah.
you're doing something that you have a emotional connection with and that you really want to exist and that those are all wonderful things.
Yeah. I say to people that I talk to about it, I've never worked this hard in my entire life, but I'm less burnt out at the same time. So it's really interesting to me that I can be working so hard, but when you compare it to when I'm working on something that I don't really care about, it's a different, the energy source is different, right? Like I'm so passionate about this. I know it helps me and my wife and family and friends, and I know it's helping other people. So there's this different driving force. Yeah.
And it's the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, right? And I feel
Yeah.
like once you're able to find, and I don't know how this is for you, but for me, my flavor of neurodivergence really struggles with extrinsic motivators. And so unless I'm like internally excited about something and I'm like I always tell people I'm pathologically curious. And if I get on this curiosity streak, then I will learn everything about anything
Yeah.
to do with this thing. I'm currently in line to be interviewed for this job. And I actually wrote a piece of software just so I can fully analyze this company.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what they're going to say when I turn up to this job interview, but I have one of the most extensive databases about what they do, possibly better than what they have. Right?
Yeah.
You can hire me or not, but I had a lot of fun researching all this stuff.
Yeah. I can relate to that heavily.
Right. And so it becomes one of those things. Look, if this is what you want, this is what you get. And if that doesn't work for you, I interview terribly. People always ask me a question and I'm like, what did you really mean there? I never have enough context to give a good answer to anybody's questions. I see you nodding. I'm sure that's similar to you.
Yeah. I completely get it.
And so I find myself getting really defensive because I want to give a good answer. But then I'm like, I can't. I don't actually know what you're looking for. I don't understand the context for why you need to know this thing to know whether or not I'm the right employee for you, right? If I somehow understood that, then I can give a good answer. But I think I'm just going to bring my full chaos Muppet and then let people either like it or not. And what I do think is that for the right employer, or for the right team, I'd be a massive asset. But for the wrong team, well...
That's it. That's it. And I think what I learned going through the corporate world is when I would interview for different jobs, I became so obsessed beforehand of how to become good at an interview. So I would go in and I would wow them with the interview, and I would be thinking in the back of my head, I just need this job because I need to put food on the table, but I do not give two shits about what the job is. But I could come across an interview as like the most passionate, know everything about the company. Like you said, I would do all the research. Even for one interview, I created my own AI character that was me, that I'd video recorded, set up and hooked into AI so that they could interview that AI version of me prior to me going into the interview. And like that stuff people see and like it really stands out. But I think a lot of the time with job interviews, it's the whole neurotypical rule set. It's what has come out of a world that's not built for us as neurodivergents. And I think it was Deloitte came out that said 85% of neurodivergent or autistic individuals, are unemployed. And that is just abysmal. It should not be that. There are plenty of skilled autistic people. Have you interviewed them in a way that allows them to show their skills, or have you done a social comparison to the other people applying for the job and decided, well, this person fits the mold better,
Right. And sometimes that backfires in the wrong direction. I was asked to come interview at Facebook 3 times for a product manager role. And every time, as soon as I'm sitting across from someone, you can just see them go, oh, not this guy. And then 6 months later, another, because I just have no chill. Like if somebody's trying to do something really dumb, I'll tell them. But of course, in a job interview context, I'm like, At some point, they're like, well, what if this happened? I was like, well, I think I know who I'd need to talk to, and it probably wouldn't be my department kind of thing. They're like, yeah, but
Yeah.
imagine it did. I was like, well, does this happen at this company? No, it's just, okay, well, and then I'm just confused, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
every 6 months, this recruiter would reach out to me. Oh, I've seen your resume. You look amazing. I was like, I know. Like, I would be an amazing PM, but I never get past the interviews because every time I sit in front of someone, they ask me dumb questions, and I don't know how to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe a
Exactly.
NeuroTranslator in the middle would be wonderful. And this is the wild thing about Silicon Valley in particular. I live in San Francisco, Silicon Valley is just down the road. Like, I feel like the vast majority of people who are like deep in tech companies are neurodivergent, right?
Yeah. It's
But nobody can
pretty
really tell
obvious.
how
Yeah.
they ended up on the inside of the walls. Once you're inside, you're fine.
Yeah.
The first step. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was like super senior at now. And I asked, so how do people like me get hired into companies like that? And he said, through acquisition or luck. Like, I got hired because I happened to know the CTO. I was a great fit for the job, but there's no way I was going to be. I was like, yeah, that's just mad.
Yeah.
And I'm curious. So, not to get all in product manager mode with you and your product, but I would
Yeah.
love it if there was like a interview trainer, interview simulator.
Yeah.
I would love that. And I've seen some of them around, and they do
Yeah.
exist, but they don't take neurodivergence into consideration.
Honestly like to see a world where this app is not just used by neurodivergent individuals, but also neurotypicals. So when you set up your profile, you can choose that you're neurotypical, because I wanted to make it in a way that it's not about neurodivergent people conforming and changing the way they are to try and fit the mold that we currently have set up. I would like to see a world where an interviewer comes in and understands that the interviewee may be neurodivergent and can adjust and meet in the middle. So it's all about, from my lens and view on it all, it's about the neurodivergent individual and the neurotypical meeting in the middle. It's not about one, having to completely reshape the way they are, because I don't want to encourage things like masking. And I think a lot of the advice and tools and therapies out there, they're just promoting masking. You're trying to change the person's poor communication methods. And I really want to get to a world where we can build some understanding around people being different, and that's okay. And these are the accommodations that we can make on both sides, and meeting in the middle seems like a much stronger foundation to build from than this whole, you go into the subreddits, and I understand where it comes from, but you go into the subreddits and it's a very us versus them mentality a lot of the time. Neurotypicals say this and I don't understand, and what the hell are they doing? And neurodivergent people, I don't understand this, and blah, 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 blah. And that whole tribal attitude, I don't think is going to get us as far as if we just understood each other and accepted each other for who we are.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. I appreciate you for doing it that way too, because the piece you're talking around is the double empathy problem, right? The idea is that we as neurodivergent people are meant to somehow fit into the default world. And I mean, there's a lot of truth to that with lots of disabilities, right? If you're in a chair, or if you have sensory processing issues, or if you have extreme allergies or something, it's entirely on you to keep yourself safe. And maybe if you're lucky, there's a ramp up to the building you want to go into, or maybe if you're extremely allergic to peanuts, or if you're in an airplane, you'd be lucky if they make an announcement, hey, please don't eat peanuts on this plane because we have somebody who's very allergic, right? But I think there's one place where that shows up is on airplanes. They've stopped serving peanuts because it's such a common allergy that they serve pretzels instead, right? And people go, where's my peanuts? Well, this is just us making sure that we're not at 60,000 feet careening through the air and suddenly somebody has an anaphylactic episode.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to that, right? Where being met halfway is part of inclusion, or at least somebody being curious enough to ask.
Anybody that's getting upset about things like peanuts not being offered on an airplane, it's like, I wish that they could just remove themselves for a second and think of the other person's perspective. The person that could potentially have peanuts touch them and go into anaphylactic shock. Do you really need the peanuts that badly? That risk is worth it. That's where the whole meeting in the middle, it's really important to my ethos.
Yeah, I love that. What do you hope people learn from this?
It's a great question. I really hope that people become more understanding and accepting of different views than their own, because I truly believe that everybody in this world deserves to be understood. And I think with understanding there can be empathy and compassion and supports put in place so that we can all have the opportunities that we deserve.
I love that. Is there a universe where your phone or your app would be able to just sit between and record both sides and go, hey, there's a misunderstanding here, kind of thing?
I did toy with that idea for a while. I think there is a world where that exists. I don't think we're quite there yet just because of the amount of cost and ability. Maybe if I could have a powerful enough AI that sat on the phone itself and didn't
Right.
have to go off and connect to other servers, maybe that'd be possible. I saw the other day that Meta, and I need to look into it further, but I heard that Meta came out with an AI where you have sensors on your head and it can read your thoughts with 80% accuracy now. And that to me is absolutely mind blowing, to the point where imagine you have somebody that's nonverbal that can now just communicate through thought. I mean, I personally wouldn't want everyone knowing my thoughts.
Right.
But I think with things like NeuroTranslator and other tools that exist, this is honestly just the beginning of what's possible. I do foresee a world. And I was on a podcast with Thomas Henley the other day, and he described it as he wanted to see some sort of like empathy machine where each person could automatically feel and understand what the other person is going through. Because a
Hmm.
lot of the time, I think with the whole double empathy problem is that neurotypicals may see autistic people as not empathetic, but they don't understand that they're just judging that based off their version of empathy. But the autistic person can be in a situation where they're sitting there and they can honestly feel the feelings of every single person at the table. And if someone gets upset, it's like almost painful at times. I know that happens with me. If I sense somebody's embarrassed or upset, I like, it pains me what they're going through and like becomes really uncomfortable. That's all I can think about in that situation. So it's not that neurodivergent people or autistic people can't feel empathy. That's so far from the truth. It's ridiculous. It's just you're judging it based on these specific metrics, and if it doesn't fit those metrics, you just say no empathy. It's completely misguided.
Yeah. Well, I think often what ends up happening with the double empathy problem in specifically is that they don't understand what my experience is, or
Yeah,
I don't understand what theirs is. Like, we're both having a level of empathy, but it's just for me, if I don't understand logically the why of something is happening, I just can't make sense of it. And it
yeah,
turns out humans are profoundly irrational beings a lot of the time,
yeah, yeah,
right? And that makes it really hard to be, yeah, to be.
yeah. I think it's really important to recognize that though, right? And not try to beat yourself up about it, because at the end of the day, we are all human. We're all just trying to do our best, and there's like more primitive parts of us that have carried through till now that sometimes we can't switch off. It just happens. You know, if you get triggered by something and you have this emotional reaction and your
Mhm.
prefrontal cortex switches off, you're human. That's what happens. It doesn't feel nice. You may react in a way that's not preferable, but we're human. Don't beat yourself up about it too much. Just try and work on it, put things in place to try and reduce it next time. That's all you can
Yeah.
really ask for a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I think the thing you said earlier about finding self compassion is the thing that I need to learn the most. I think it's a lot of the time, if somebody misunderstands me, I entirely blame myself.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh, why couldn't I just human better? Why couldn't I figure this out better? Why couldn't I
yeah,
just tell this in a way that would connect with them emotionally and intellectually and spiritually or whatever it is, so I can be understood with the context and the meaning behind what I was trying to communicate?
yeah.
And it's fiercely hard.
It is incredibly difficult. I completely empathize with your experience because I still, at times, also go through it. Self-compassion is really difficult. And I honestly believe for me, it's just a skill that I've had to work on over time. And the more repetitions you get in, the more second nature it becomes, the more subconscious it becomes. So now when something triggers me, I can notice it for what's happening,
Right.
and start running those scripts in my head, those self-compassion scripts. But that took a long time for me to get to that place. But yeah, I completely relate to what you're saying. It's rough, and I think honestly we can become our own worst enemies at times.
Ain't that the truth? Hey, I love to end these interviews with the same two questions for everyone. And the first one is, what do you wish people knew about neurodivergence that they typically don't?
Great question. So what do I wish people knew about neurodivergence that they don't? I think the thing that stands out to me is that if you know, I'll stick with being autistic for a moment, but if you know someone that is autistic, you know one person that is autistic. You know, this it's called the spectrum for a reason. There's so much neurospiciness and mixture going on, and the way it shows up in different people, given their brain, their experiences, their traumas. There's so many variables that go into the equation that you can't just paint every single neurodivergent person with the same brush. It doesn't work that way. And I think with things like popular media, different movies and television series, that's what happens. And I know when I found out that I was autistic and I started to tell people, a lot of my friends, like my closest friends, were like, "You're not autistic. Don't be stupid.
Right.
What do you mean?" And they're basing it off their very biased opinion of what being autistic is. And yeah, I just really wish that the world could come. And I think as awareness continues to rise, I wish the world would understand that there's this big soup of difference and it's all beautiful in its own way.
Yeah, beautiful. And my final question, can you tell me of a time that you were seen and loved in exactly the right way for you?
Okay. Seen and loved in exactly the right way for me. There's a lot of moments that have happened since I went through the whole unmasking process where I just feel so seen by my wife, where, for instance, she'll see me scratching my knee or fidgeting when I have an important phone call coming up or I have something going on that's stressing me out. And she'll just walk over and give me like a fidget toy or a stress ball or something because she's seen what I'm doing and she's found something that I can really connect with. And she's seeing my experience for what it is, not through her own lens and things like that. There's so many, but what else? I remember there was one night where it was deep in burnout and I couldn't even speak to my wife because of the ruminating and the beating myself up that was going on in my own head. And she asked me what was wrong. I just couldn't get the words out. So I wrote down on a piece of paper, "I just can't imagine a world where you will want to stay with me." And it was absolutely like heartbreaking. I was like in tears, and in a weird way, I felt so much love in that moment because she was like, "What do you mean?
Yeah,
That's
what's wrong with you, dumbass?"
Yeah, like I'm with you no matter what. Like this, we'll work this out." And it was just like this, oh my God, like I was so deep in my own pain. And for her to just go, "I got you. Like it's all good,"
That's
just meant the
awesome.
world to me. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing those. And thank you for coming on the podcast. This has been absolutely wonderful. And I hope our listeners check out your app and that you're able to get the level of impact that you're hoping.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for having me on. I love what you're doing. I always see your clips pop up and I watch them, and I think this much awareness being raised is so important for neurodivergent individuals and also neurotypicals because the stats, I think they're up to 1 in 5 neurodivergent. Don't quote me on that, but if you're neurotypical, you know somebody that's neurodivergent. And the more that we can learn and understand about the different ways it presents, I think the better this world can become. So yeah, I just want to thank you for everything that you do and thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the insightful conversation with Mikey about his journey through unmasking and the NeuroTranslator app. You can find us on TikTok at Autistic FM, on Instagram on autistic_FM, and on the web at autistic.fm. This podcast is produced and hosted by me, Haje Kamps. It's been a delight to have you with me, and here's a fact that makes me happy. Did you know that you can line up every planet in the solar system, excluding Earth, between the Earth and the Moon? It might sound unlikely, but it turns out when you add together the diameters of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, they snugly fit between the average distance of about 384,000 kilometers that separates us from our lunar neighbor. It is so fascinating because it both shows how far away the moon really is, but also how small the planets are. Jupiter alone, which is the largest planet in our solar system, has a diameter of nearly 140,000 kilometers. But that still means that there's plenty of space left for all of its planetary siblings. Now, of course, if you try to actually stack all the planets next to Earth, we would end in a fiery doom. But, this is about distances. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you for the next episode.